Good afternoon, everyone. I'm so pleased to see all of you. Thank you all for being here. Welcome to our first Core Values lecture of 2016. As you know, we have had several core lectures in the past year, and we will continue to do so. We are very mindful of the fact that this university has a set of core values on and for which we stand. And the core value that we're going to explore and celebrate today is one that is certainly fitting for any university, and that's UMB's core value of knowledge. And there is no one better suited, better qualified for this examination than our distinguished guest today. My former boss, but my abiding friend as well, Brit Kirwan. You all know that Dr. Kirwan is the former Chancellor of the University System of Maryland. And for over a dozen years in that position, he did more to shape higher education in this state than anyone else. Under his leadership, the system experienced incredible growth, a 24% increase in student enrollment, and it underwent a technology transformation. Dr. Kirwan strengthened the system's role as an economic engine for Maryland with unprecedented investments in cutting-edge research and innovation. Dr. Kirwan comes from a tradition of higher education leadership. His father, Dr. A.D. Kirwan, was an accomplished educator and administrator who served as the 7th president of the University of Kentucky, where decades later I had the privilege of leading the medical school. So Brit and I, among other things that we share some bluegrass history. And I believe this unique experience growing up on college campuses in Kentucky, North Carolina, framed Dr. Kirwan's views of education on the profound value in creating and disseminating knowledge, and on our attendant obligation to ensure that no one is shut out of this critical enterprise. I've quoted this line of Dr. Kirwan's before, but I think it bears repeating. Just a couple of years ago, he wrote, and I quote, "Deep within the makeup of this great nation is the belief that a person's status at birth is not supposed to determine his or her status throughout life." And I quote further, "It has always been education that provided the most effective and reliable path to a person's full potential, taking them as far as their efforts and ambition will allow them to go." End quote. And so it's hardly surprising that as head of the university system, Dr. Kirwan led a hugely successful effort to increase the enrollment, retention, and graduation rates of low-income students, first-generation students, and underrepresented minority students. In a career packed with accomplishments, I believe this one, his success closing pernicious, damaging gaps in college participation and achievement is among the most meaningful. Brit Kirwan began his career as a professor in the Department of Mathematics at the University of Maryland, College Park. His academic and administrative talent would ultimately take him to the presidency of our sister university. And he served in that position for 10 years. He left Maryland to become president of Ohio State University before returning in 2002 to serve as USM Chancellor. Throughout his career, Dr. Kirwan has been sought out for his formidable expertise. He served on several national boards, shaping U.S. policy in education and economic development. Among too many awards to mention, Dr. Kirwan has won two of the nation's most prestigious honors, the Theodore M. Hesburgh Award for Leadership Excellence and the Carnegie Corporation Leadership Award. He's a member of the American Academy of Arts and Sciences. Dr. Kirwan retired from the chancellorship in 2015, but his impressive mark on Maryland higher education will not fade with time. In large part, our institution, UMB, owes its strength, its compassion, and its prominence to his extraordinary leadership. Please help me welcome my dear friend and colleague, Dr. Brit Kirwan.
You are the best. Jay, thank you so very much for that extraordinary introduction. I think we should just stop right here and go on to lunch. I'm quite frankly very touched and really overwhelmed by your generous comments. Whenever I hear such a glowing introduction, I'm reminded of a story that John Glenn, the former senator and astronaut, told me. When he left the Senate, John returned to Ohio, where I worked closely with him during my tenure as president of Ohio State to create the John Glenn Institute at the university. John said he was once introduced by an MC who went on and on with great platitudes about John and concluded with a flourish, saying, "John Glenn is a truly great man, and there are very few truly great men in the world today." On the drive home with his wife, Annie, John said, "You know, Annie, he was probably right. There are probably very few truly great men in the world." Without missing a beat, Annie said, "Yes, and there's one fewer than you think there are." Spouses can be wonderful sources of humility. I know mine is. Patty keeps telling me I should always show great humility because I have so much to be humble about. I'd also like to thank you, Jay, for the high honor of speaking in the university's Core Values lecture series. Although knowing who my predecessor speakers are in this series, I have a very daunting assignment. My high regard for this university makes the honor of speaking on this occasion all the greater. I began working with UMB when I became provost at College Park in 1981. Over the intervening years, I've been deeply impressed by the commitment to quality that pervades every aspect of this institution's activities. I especially enjoyed my years as Chancellor, working with you, Jay, and the leadership style you have brought to this institution, which places such an emphasis on collaboration, a core value I greatly appreciate. Not only do I admire the excellence of the university, I also feel a deep sense of appreciation for how it has impacted my family and me in a very personal way. the sensitive and excellent care my wife has received by the doctors, nurses, and pharmacists at UMB during her illness have made us the most grateful of patients. And I have a partial knee replacement, thanks to Craig Barrett, that enables me to be an active tennis player still. The relationships I've enjoyed with the members of the School of Social Work and the School of Law have also been very meaningful and important to me. And let me not forget to thank the School of Dentistry for looking after my teeth so well. My assignment today is to speak about knowledge, one of the university's 7 core values. Having spent 52 years of my life working in higher education, this is, of course, a topic near and dear to my heart. The dictionary defines knowledge as understanding of a subject gained through experience or study. One of the best quotes I know about knowledge comes from Ben Franklin, who once said, "An investment in knowledge always pays the best interest." Maybe we should send our state leaders a book of Franklin quotes and highlight that one. In any case, knowledge is obviously, as Jay said, a relevant and appropriate core value for a university such as UMB. My talk today will have 2 parts. The first is a celebration of knowledge and this university for the ways it has so positively impacted the larger society through the creation, application, and dissemination of knowledge. The second part will take a perhaps unexpected turn and pose some challenges society faces due to the exponential rate of growth in the knowledge now occurring. But let's start with the celebration. And there is much to celebrate. We are fortunate to live in an era in a nation where the creation, application, and dissemination of knowledge has advanced the quality of life beyond what even our parents, well, looking at the youthful age of this audience, let me say my parents, could have imagined. My father died 45 years ago with a heart condition brought on by heavy smoking, long before there was knowledge about the harmful effects of tobacco use. My mother died a few decades later from a form of cancer that, because of new knowledge today, can be treated almost as a chronic disease. In my lifetime, the creation of new knowledge and its applications have led to stunning changes in the way people live and work. The MRI, laparoscopic surgery, genomics, the smartphone, the internet, Google, the list goes on and on. Incidentally, did you know that your smartphone has more computing power than all of NASA had when the first astronauts landed on the moon? By the way, I started to put social media on the list of advances, but given the constant stream of Facebook updates from people I hardly know, you'll probably agree that it's a mixed blessing at best. UMB has a long and proud tradition in the creation and application of knowledge for the benefit of humankind. A wonderful example is Angela Brody, UMB's professor of pharmacology, who discovered that aromatase inhibitors can prevent the recurrence of breast cancers in women. This discovery by a faculty member at UMB, which has been described as one of the most significant breakthroughs in cancer treatment over the past quarter century, has led to the go-to treatment for breast cancer, replacing tamoxifen and other drugs with potentially harmful side effects. For this research, Professor Brody won, among other prizes, the prestigious Kettering Prize from the General Motors Cancer Research Foundation. Fortunately for us men, Professor Brody has recently turned her attention to the treatment of prostate cancer. Another excellent example of how UMB has advanced humankind's quality of life through creation and application of knowledge is Robert Gallo, director of the School of Medicine's Institute for Human Virology. I hardly need to tell this audience about the impact of Bob Gallo's and his colleagues' work. As co-discoverer of the AIDS virus, Bob's research has led to the treatments that have turned AIDS from a death sentence to effectively a manageable chronic disease. Bob and his team are now taking the next steps in AIDS research and have started a trial for an AIDS vaccine, which would at long last provide a means of AIDS prevention. Through IHV, UMB has excelled in another aspect of knowledge, its application. IHV treats more than 5,000 Baltimore residents with AIDS, and get this, over 500,000 AIDS sufferers in Africa. No university in the world can match UMB and IHV for the sheer volume and quality of care it provides to those with AIDS. Yet another example of UMB's excellence in the creation and application of knowledge is Claire Fraser, professor of medicine and the director of UMB's Institute of Genome Sciences. Claire was part of the small team of eminent scientists who sequenced the human genome. Her work has led to the sequencing of many bacterial and parasitic pathogens. You no doubt recall that in 2001 there was the terrifying anthrax scare when the 2 U.S. congressmen received letters tainted with anthrax. Claire led a team that identified 4 genetic mutations in the anthrax spores and enabled the FBI to actually trace the material back to the original source. This effort catalyzed the development of a whole new field, microbial forensics. IGS, which Claire leads, is at the forefront of the exciting new field of personalized medicine. Recently, IGS had another breakthrough discovery in the creation of new knowledge. 2 IGS researchers, David Rasko and Michael Donnenberg, have just discovered the genetic makeup of strains of the E. coli bacteria that kill hundreds of thousands of people every year. This discovery holds real promise of finally providing treatments and cures for this dreaded parasite. And there could be no better example of the creation and application of knowledge to save lives than the world-famous R. Adams Cowley Shock Trauma Center based right here at UMB and UMMC. But these great advances in the creation and application of knowledge are not limited to the medical sciences at UMB. They are occurring across the university. Take, for example, the School of Social Work. It is using the latest research, or in the vernacular of today's talk, the creation and application of knowledge and a $2 million grant from the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services to address the issue of homelessness among low-income youth. The school has developed and refined strategies that are aimed at providing stable housing, permanent connections, education and employment, and social and emotional well-being for these youth. Or take the Carey School of Law. It is the only law school in America that requires its first-year law students to provide legal services to indigent citizens. This requirement, which is named for Senator Ben Cardin, a graduate of the school, results in more than 250 students giving 1,400 hours of legal services under the supervision of Carey School faculty. What a remarkable example of applying knowledge to support people who would otherwise have no place to turn for legal advice. On the application of knowledge, I hope you will permit me a very personal but powerful example. As some of you may know, my wife was diagnosed with multiple myeloma 5 years ago. She has received extraordinarily compassionate and highly competent care at the Greenenbaum Center under the director of Dr. Ashraf Badros. While multiple myeloma is to date incurable, several chemotherapy treatment regimes have been developed that can successfully manage the disease for a period of time. Unfortunately, myeloma eventually discovers a strategy to defeat any particular chemotherapy regime, and the patient must move to another. Having exhausted the standard chemotherapy treatments for Patty, Dr. Badros got her into a clinical trial being conducted right here at UMB and elsewhere for a remarkable new treatment. Rather than infusing poisonous chemotherapy into the body, this new drug uses the body's immune system to attack the cancer. Here's how it works. In effect, a GPS is attached to mouse protein, which is then infused into the patient. The GPS guides the mouse protein to the myeloma cells and accumulates around the myeloma cells. The body's immune system then says, hey, there's a foreign substance invading my body and we need to eradicate it. So the immune system attacks the mouse protein and in the process devours the myeloma cells. After 16 weeks, Patty has gone from having very few treatment options to being declared in remission. Thank you. It is a miracle made possible by the creation and application of knowledge taking place right here at UMB. But it's not just the creation and application of knowledge where UMB excels. The university is a leader in the dissemination of knowledge as well, through, for example, the highly ranked degree programs in the schools of nursing, dentistry, pharmacy, medicine, social work, and law. As I hope these examples demonstrate to you, UMB's core value of knowledge and its creation, application, and dissemination for the benefit of humankind is alive and well. Throughout this university, these examples and many, many others I could cite should make all members of this university feel enormously proud to be part of a community that, through knowledge creation, application, and dissemination, is making such a difference in the lives of so many others. All I can say in this regard is bravo, UMB. You give every Marylander a reason for enormous pride. I now turn to part 2 of my talk and discuss some of the challenges knowledge creation, application, and dissemination are presenting for humankind. At first blush, one might think that knowledge used appropriately is such a good and positive thing. How could it possibly present challenges for our society? First, I'll speak about the challenges we're beginning to face with the creation and application of knowledge. The human race has, of course, been expanding the base of knowledge since the dawn of time. Let me give you a striking example of how this has worked. Scholars say that the body of human knowledge generated from the time humans first walked on earth to the start of the Christian era, a period of over 1.5 million years, doubled over the next 1,500 years. That's pretty remarkable. The doubling time for knowledge created was reduced by 1,000,000%. The next doubling took 250 years, and the next 150 years. By the end of World War II, humankind's base of knowledge was doubling every 25 years. Today, best estimates are that the totality of human knowledge is doubling every 13 months. That's a stunning thought. Now think about that for just a moment. From December 1 of 2014 to January 1 of 2016, humankind created as much new knowledge as had been generated by humans from the dawn of time. The doubling rate is especially dramatic in medicine. Experts estimate that in 1950 it took 50 years to double medical knowledge. In 1980 it took 7 years. In 2010 it took 3.5 years. And in 2020 the projection is that it will take 73 days. a mere 2.5 months. What has happened to make the knowledge doubling time drop so dramatically is that as knowledge is created today, it can be disseminated through the internet at roughly the speed of light to any place on the planet, enabling others to use this newly generated knowledge to generate yet more knowledge, which itself is disseminated at the speed of light, and a compounding rate of knowledge growth occurs. In effect, the rate of growth of new knowledge has switched from being linear to exponential. Here's a graph to illustrate what I mean. Now we're going to test my technical skills here for 1 minute. Okay, so this is the knowledge doubling curve. The graph is the amount of human knowledge, and that shows what has happened as we move forward with time, and the growth rate has become exponential. Not bad, huh? All right. Now, on the one hand, since we've just been talking about all the great advances in the creation and application of knowledge have produced for humankind, this accelerating rate of growth of knowledge is a good thing. More knowledge at an ever-accelerating rate to make further advances. But here's the problem. The doubling rate also presents this challenge for us. The basic problem is that any one individual's ability to absorb and utilize new knowledge is more linear than exponential. For an example, the total amount of material sophomores and juniors in college are expected to learn is roughly the same. We don't ask juniors to learn twice as much as freshmen learn. What this tells us is that for humans to continue to take full advantage of knowledge generation in the future, we have to fundamentally change the way we prepare people for successful careers and lives in this brave new knowledge-rich world we have entered. When I went to college in 1956, which must seem like the dark ages to most of you, my classmates and I went to class to receive knowledge from our professors. They and the library were essentially the only places this knowledge could be found. Our goal back then was to cram our heads with as much knowledge as we could because there was such a limited number of places to go where it could be found. And access to the knowledge depended upon someone or something else. The professor being at office hours, or the library being open, or the book we needed not already checked out. Fast forward to today. Essentially, any question you would like answered and information you would like to know, assuming it exists, is one click away on Google. But more than that, the click also produces references to a seemingly endless list of other articles on related information. We no longer have to go anywhere to get information. We just need to access the internet. So, for society to continue to advance and for people to have meaningful careers, the nature of what students learn in the classroom needs to fundamentally change. Yes, we still need the professor, and yes, she or he will still be a font of knowledge, but only one of many fonts of knowledge available to learners. What the classroom of the future needs is, as the saying goes, not a sage on the stage, but a guide on the side. Today's students need to know how to pose questions, access, assess, and synthesize information in real time, and to be able to work effectively in collaboration with others. The body of knowledge is simply too vast and becoming more vast every day, as we just saw, for anyone to be a final authority on any subject. With apologies to the physicians in the room, I heard a prominent doctor say the other day in a talk that properly programmed computers actually have greater diagnostic accuracy than well-trained doctors. Now, don't shoot the messenger. I'm just telling you what this prominent doctor told me. And even if he's not right, surely the day is not far away when he will be right. The point is, because of the vastness of the knowledge base today, we need people with expertise and access to highly specialized knowledge bases. But then we also need teams of such people to take this collected knowledge and form it into applications and new advances in knowledge. And we need generalists who can assemble the teams of experts to bring the best current thinking to bear on complex problems and issues. I read a quote the other day that captures well what I'm suggesting here. In a world of fast knowledge development, none of us will have the capability to know much of anything at all in relation to the total amount of information available on any topic. The most important skills we will have are the ability to ask the right question and get the right information for the right purpose at the right time. And the most important capability we will have is to be a collaborative member of a team working together to solve problems and create new knowledge. Let me conclude my talk on knowledge with one final challenge that the exponential growth in knowledge presents for us. Simply put, knowledge and the ability to acquire and access it has dramatically changed the nature of work in America and in other advanced nations. A century ago, a high school education and a willingness to manual labor led to meaningful and successful careers. Today, that is much less the case. The next graph shows just how dramatically the nature of work has changed over the past century. Now, that's a very difficult graph to absorb in a brief period of time, but the blue line represents the service sector. The other two lines are agriculture and industry, mainly production line manufacturing. So you see from 1840 to 2010 how the nature of work has changed. And the two declining sectors were basically manual labor jobs. The blue line, the service sector, are jobs that, to a large extent, require a college education. In a personal way, I witnessed just how much things have changed over my lifetime in this regard, and how much the education demands of the workplace have increased. When Patty and I graduated from high school, we went off to college, as did other of our classmates. Many, perhaps even most, however, went straight to the workforce with their newly minted high school diplomas. A few years back, we went to our 50th high school reunion. Truth be told, we're going to our 60th this month. But at our 50th, I observed that most of my classmates who had gone immediately into the workforce were retired and living on nice pensions in Florida. And there I was with a PhD and still working. Can you imagine a high school graduate today who doesn't earn a college degree having such a life? Not likely. The lifetime economic premium for a college degree versus a high school only degree is $1 million and growing. For those with a professional degree, the premium is over $2 million. This slide illustrates the education premium story very well. So you start at the bottom with the smallest amount of education, and you move toward the top with professional and doctoral degrees, and you show the difference in earnings. This is on I think a weekly earnings basis. And then you look at the green, and that's unemployment rates. So the premium on education is not just that you earn a lot more money, you're much more likely to be working. A great challenge for our nation is that knowledge acquisition through college-going and professional education attainment rates are severely skewed based on wealth. Hard as it may be to believe, a child born into the lowest quartile of income has only an 8% chance of ever getting a college degree, whereas a child born into the highest quartile has a greater than 80% chance of graduating from college. So knowledge and its acquisition, marvelous in and of themselves, also present our society with a significant social and moral challenge. In the era of the knowledge economy, economic well-being depends on knowledge acquisition through education. But as I noted, access and success in education today is highly correlated with economic well-being. As a result, large portions of our population are mired in a vicious cycle of poverty. Too many children born into poverty have limited access to the knowledge they need for a better life. Then they have children born into poverty who face the same circumstances. I recently heard tragic data about Baltimore that illustrates the enormity of the challenge well. As we know, sadly, this is a city with high poverty and very low college participation rates for its high school graduates. Tragically, 93% of Baltimoreans who are born into poverty die in poverty. This condition is totally at odds with our nation's founding values. We are, after all, the land of opportunity, the upwardly mobile society, the place the rest of the world sees as the shining beacon on the hill. How can we keep faith with our founding values if we don't address this challenge? The solution to the challenge, more equitable access to knowledge, will not come easily and will require new and renewed efforts on many fronts. Obviously, it starts with ensuring that we disseminate knowledge to all children in America, rich or poor, white or colored, or of color, male or female, by providing them with access to high-quality pre-K through high school education. Obviously, we are a long way from achieving that goal. But, as we've discussed, a high school education is not enough. We have to also ensure that we disseminate knowledge to high school graduates through access to high-quality college and professional school education programs. And that is becoming an ever-increasing challenge because the cost to the student of getting an education is rising at an alarming rate. Let me share a little data with you that graphically illustrates the problem. This is the growth rate the takeaway from this slide, this chart, is that over the period from 2003 to 2013, college tuition, that's the bar on the right, driven largely by the precipitous decline in public support for higher education, rose at 3 times the rate of the Consumer Price Index. And amazingly, more than 1.5 times faster than healthcare costs. Not surprisingly, with rising tuition comes increased student debt levels, which have increased 260% from 2003 to 2012. 260% increase in debt levels. And the volume of debt keeps growing. Total outstanding student debt today exceeds $1.3 trillion. That's trillion with a T, and is now greater than the total outstanding credit card debt in America. As I'm sure you're aware, Al, the cost of medical education is on the rise as well. The takeaway from this slide, which I'm sure is no surprise to this audience, is that medical school costs are rising at roughly twice the rate of inflation, with the expected impact on the debt graduates are incurring. Al Reese told me recently that on average, it now takes graduates of his school 18 years to retire their debt. 18 years. Among other concerns, rising costs and rising debt are having an impact on the socioeconomic backgrounds of medical students. In 2005, most recent data I had, only 10% of medical students came from the lower 2 quintiles of income. Only 10%. By contrast, in the 1970s, 25% of the medical students came from the lower 2 quintiles of household income. That's a 60% decline in participation rates for low-income students. The current trend in medical education costs will almost surely exacerbate this situation. But this problem is obviously not restricted to medical education. It is true for professional and graduate education generally. For example, according to the American Dental Education Association, the average cost of attending dental school is up nearly 50% since 2000. According to the ADEA, the average debt load for all dental students is now more than $200,000, an increase of 66% in the past 10 years. This all leads me to a conclusion that no one in higher education wants to hear, and that could make me very unpopular with this audience. There is simply no way we can possibly meet our responsibilities for the dissemination of knowledge and educate the volume of people that we must educate in the decades to come to keep America at the forefront of the global economy and give all of our citizens a real chance at economic well-being, unless we find lower cost means of delivering high-quality education, including professional education. Don't get me wrong. Obviously, we need to continue to remind public officials of Ben Franklin's aphorism and make the strongest possible case for greater public funding of education at all levels. But just out of curiosity, let me see a show of hands of those that think we will see a significant wrap-up in public funding for, say, professional education over the next 5 years. Now let me see a show of hands of those that think the cost of professional education, professional and collegiate education, and debt levels for students can continue to rise at their current rates. Well, some of you think there's probably no other option. Isn't it time we started focusing on a plan B? Now, exactly what plan B should be is a great unsolved problem, because we've been operating under the assumption of plan A, namely heavy public subsidy of higher education, since the end of World War II. But without a plan B, we face the prospect of disseminating knowledge through quality collegiate and professional education to a smaller and smaller proportion of wealthier and wealthier students. So what might the elements of a plan B look like? I certainly can't answer that question. But I am one who believes the internet, sophisticated so-called intelligent software, and interactive adaptive learning platforms capable of addressing the education needs of individual students, much like individualized medicine targets specific treatments to the needs of individual patients. This technology has the potential to improve quality and drive down the cost of education. Just a few weeks ago, MIT, that eminent institution in Cambridge, Massachusetts, made a surprising announcement. This year, it will launch a pilot project to determine if portions of professional master's degree programs, which have traditionally been provided entirely face-to-face, can be delivered through an internet-enabled learning platform called edX. edX is a learning platform jointly developed by MIT and Harvard. In this pilot, students will earn half of their required credits for a degree through edX, saving students tens of thousands of dollars in tuition and living costs in Cambridge, Massachusetts. If the pilot proves successful, MIT plans to implement this strategy across the curriculum. Georgia Tech and the University of Illinois, among others, are developing similar programs using these sophisticated learning platforms, all delivered at lower cost than traditional exclusive face-to-face programs. Could there be an application of this idea for the first 2 years of preclinical medical, dental, or other professional education programs? One other thought. Many college students with career plans for professional education and programs like those at UMB come to college campuses with 30 and 40 credits from advanced placement work and early college courses. Most of these students could easily graduate in 2 or 3 years. Instead, they create double and triple majors to fill up their 4 years. Would it be possible for those who chose to do so to begin their preclinical or other professional education while still undergraduates, streamlining their path to a professional degree by a year or more and saving considerable costs. I, of course, cannot say whether either of these ideas have merit for UMB, but I do know that all of higher education must begin to think seriously about how we disseminate knowledge to students in the future so that much higher proportions of our young citizens, especially those from lower income families, will have a chance at the American dream and to become doctors, lawyers, healthcare, and other professionals. Knowing this institution as I do, with knowledge and its creation, application, and dissemination as a core value, I put my money down on UMB being a leader in helping our nation find solutions to this enormous challenge. Let me close my remarks today with one final and very dramatic example of how UMB's commitment to knowledge, its creation, application, and dissemination is having a dramatic impact on our world, and why it is so important for UMB and others to address the challenges I pose today so that knowledge-driven progress, such as in this video, which some of you may well have seen, continues into the future. Now, this is going to be the ultimate test of my technical capacities.
Breakthrough for Parkinson's disease patients. An experimental treatment being tested here is showing some incredible results. Doctors say it could help restore the quality of life for millions of people suffering from this debilitating disease. This is what Parkinson's disease does to Kimberly Spletter. Uncontrolled movements, shaking and wobbling.
It got to the point where I was having difficulty getting dressed. I have a grandson. I couldn't snap his onesies. I was at a wedding recently and I couldn't dance with my dad. It was sad.
Parkinson's is a degenerative disease of the nervous system. There's no cure, only treatments to ease the symptoms, including the most common treatment, an old medication that causes its own set of side effects.
With time, it seems to be less effective, mostly because the disease just progressively gets worse with time.
But now, doctors at the University of Maryland Medical Center are experimenting with a brand new treatment, something that's never been done before. It's called MRI-guided ultrasound.
It's been known for a long time that if you make lesions in certain parts of the brain, you can eliminate some of the symptoms.
And that's exactly what this treatment does, except there's no cutting and no surgery. Patients are put into a special MRI machine so doctors can get a close-up view inside the head. Then ultrasound waves are targeted to a specific part of the brain that's connected with the uncontrolled movements. Dr. Howard Eisenberg is Kimberly's neurosurgeon.
But making the lesion is not destroying the cells that per se are causing the symptoms, but it interrupts that part of the circuit, and then the symptoms are relieved.
Kimberly underwent this treatment less than a week ago. She says she had to shave her head, but the procedure didn't hurt. The only feeling is intense heat. The results, though, were immediate. She was able to walk.
It was just absolutely the most incredible thing in the world.
And when we met Kimberly this morning, there was even more emotion because she was able to accomplish something else, running, a favorite hobby that she hasn't been able to do for years.
It's turned back the clock for me. You know, I have a new lease on life. I can do things that I want to do. It's a blessing.
Pretty amazing and very, very rare for medical researchers to see something they're testing produce immediate results like this. So
I get goosebumps every time I watch that slide. That's what knowledge does for our society. That's UMB. Thank you very much. Beautiful. Beautiful. Thank you. That's such a great video. Thank you very much. Thank you.
What questions do you have for Dr. Kirwan?
Don't forget lunch is waiting for us. So. Anybody have a question? All right.
Hold on now.
Our good dean.
Oh,
No,
good.
you were it.
Great talk, Brit. It's wonderful
Thank you.
to hear you again. So one of my questions, and I don't really expect you to have an answer for this, is as knowledge explodes and it's doubling so fast, one of the arguments would be, well, we need to have longer graduate programs because there's more knowledge to learn. But I wonder, on the other hand, and I realize that the economics of that aren't really feasible, but I wonder, on the other hand, do we have some idea whether knowledge is expanding sideways or is it expanding in depth? Insofar as there are many new fields that are being created. So if knowledge is primarily expanding laterally, then the amount of knowledge that would be expanding for any given field, like the heart of clinical practice in a certain area, may not be expanding quite that fast. And I'm just sort of wondering what we know about the way knowledge is expanding.
Well, I'm definitely out of my depth in answering this, but since I've thought about it a little bit, and I think it's expanding in both dimensions. The breadth of knowledge. We see all the new fields. I mean, for example, genomics was not even a field. How many years ago, Al? 20 years ago? It was not even a field. And now, of course, it's there. But it's also the depth of knowledge in each field is expanding. So we're sort of caught in a two-dimensional growth here that does create a huge problem for us. And we don't have to solve it tomorrow, but it does mean that we have to rethink what does it mean to be educated anymore? And what should our education programs look like? I mean, we need to start thinking about that, because the old paradigm, the one that I experienced, is just not relevant, appropriate anymore in the world we live in.
Anyone else? Well, Brit, please.
Oh,
we have
my goodness.
a small token of our appreciation. It's not as significant as it should be.
Oh,
but,
come on.
we are so grateful for your coming to create more knowledge for us and to provoke us a bit. Thank you very much.
I'm very, very honored. Thank you all so much. And now I get to participate in the real highlight of this session. We're having a drawing for opening day tickets that I think include a meal?
No, it includes the game, though.
The game. You can buy a hot dog at the game.
Yeah.
All right, so what do we do?
We're going to alternate, the Chancellor and I, in drawing tickets. Take a look at your ticket, and let's see if we have some winners here.
Shall I go first?
Yes, please.
238 643. All right.
All right, come on up here.
Hey. Go O's. Thank you.
This is the toughest thing we've had to do today, isn't it? 238540.
All right.
All right.
Congratulations. Thank you. Very nice.
3 more to go. Dr. Kirwan?
All right. Here we go. And we have 238 569.
No?
Oh, that was my ticket.
There we go. Nice try.
No. We don't have anybody.
Right there?
Oh, okay. Congratulations.
Two, 642.
All right. We have one more?
One more.
Congratulations. 238 8 4-2. All right. Another winner.
All right.
Congratulations. All right.
I hope all of you have a wonderful weekend. Please enjoy lunch, and thank you very much for coming.